Assalamualaikum everyone. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. It actually really does help us because the bigger we get, the better guests we can get for you guys. So please and thank you. See ya.
Okay, let's go. Bismillah.
Yes, Bismillah. That's a great start, Fatima. Thank you for interrupting me. Would anyone else like to interrupt me before we start? I'm kidding. Yes, Assalamualaikum everyone. Welcome back to another MPL episode. This episode has been in progress for a little bit of time, and this is going to be focused on sort of the struggles and the journey that we as Muslims face throughout our professional life. And all of us here are actually from completely different industries and have completely different experiences, so this should be a really fruitful episode for anyone listening. And without further ado, I would just like to open up the floor to you guys to introduce yourselves. So, Alaa, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Fatima, and then Munib.
All right, so I am super excited to join you all today. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Alaa, and I am a pediatrician. I work in the Well Baby Nursery, and I am a mother to 2 kiddos. I think you can hear one of them now. That's my youngest, Hannah, and I have a son as well. I am currently practicing in Texas, and yeah.
Awesome. Fatima.
So I don't have an amazing intro like Dr. Alaa, but I'm more just a simple interviewer on Instagram. I interview content creators, influencers, anyone basically, I feel like I'm inspired by. And so, yeah, I interview them, and I've had the privilege to interview 2 of these individuals, and inshallah, Dr. Alaa is my next victim, so I can't wait. And I'm really happy and excited to be here. I'd like to say that.
I think I can introduce Munib. He's an iPhone user, and that's it.
iPhones are better than Androids. And anyways, my name is Munib. Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome. I love this little group thing we have going on. I am a mechanical engineer. I work at a nuclear power plant. So if you imagine Simpsons, that's pretty much me. Yeah, that's all. And I do TikToks. Yeah.
Awesome.
Nice. People are already, I hope, familiar with me. I'm just one of the co-hosts of MPL, and I'm excited to have this episode. I know for me, going through like my own business school journey, there was a lot of things that I struggled with, and there was a lot of things that I know Muslims in my program struggle with a lot. So I'm really curious to hear about, the experiences that Alaa has in medicine, Munib has in engineering, and Fatima, the experiences she has with different content creators and whatever they have been through as Muslims. So I'm really, really excited. But before we get into the deep stuff, I do want to keep it a little bit lighthearted in the beginning. And I want to ask and open up the floor to you guys to ask if there's been any like awkward, funny, really like cringy experiences that you've faced, whether it be in school or, whether you're practicing at work or anything like that. So open up the floor to any of you. Whoever wants to jump in, feel free.
That's my daughter.
It looks
Hi,
like
Hannah.
Hold on, guys.
Go ahead.
All good. You can continue. Munib, go ahead.
Yeah? Oh, what?
Yeah.
Wait.
Fatima
Sorry.
disappeared too. What's going on?
I'm so sorry. I'm back.
No, I'm kidding. All right, let's just start off. So, usually, I think it was Ramadan, maybe not. But and this was in the work field, not as an engineer, but this was just in one of my retail jobs. It was Future Shop, if you remember what Future Shop is. So, anyways, I usually just like really make wudu, and then the prayer time, I would go into like the lunchroom, whatever we had, and then I would pray, right? So I started praying, and it was Asr time, I believe. So I'm praying Asr, and it's around like 7:30. So this guy is done his shift. So someone walks in, and usually I hate when people walk in because it's just weird, right? So this guy walks in, and I think I'm doing sajda, like I'm on the floor, and he grabs his jacket, and he's like, Munib. And I'm like, shoot, I can't reply to him. And he's like, Munib. And he's like, Munib, are you okay? And I'm like, I can't really respond right now. So I try to like speed up my prayer because like I'm pretty much almost done. And he's like, Munib. And he runs out the change room. He's like, guys, I don't think Munib's okay. So he's calling people. So another coworker comes in, okay? And by this time I'm done my prayer, okay? He's like, Munib, are you okay? And And I'm like, I think Steven was his name. I'm like, Steven, man, I was just praying. I'm perfectly fine. He's like, oh, I saw like the towel thing on the floor and like your head was on it. So I thought like you weren't feeling well and you were just lying down. And I'm like, no, that's how we pray. I'm totally fine. I'm sorry you had to see that. But yeah, that was just probably the most awkward interaction I had like as a Muslim. It was just very like that's unforgettable moment. It was just funniest thing ever.
That's so
But
It's
dope.
rough.
Yeah.
Retail job, it's rough to be a Muslim man.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I
But it's
agree.
funny. It's funny though. They
Yeah.
respect you most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's hilarious.
I had a really funny experience actually, but it was in university. Okay, so you guys don't remember the BlackBerry like time, with the curve and whatnot. Anyways, I remember I was in one of my class. It was a very large class where the like in York University the stairs, like basically the seats are like this, and then this is the professor. So I, for that one day, decided I'm going to sit closer to the professor. And I had like the Azan like app, and the topic of that class was about extremism, like extremists. And literally the timing was incredible, and it was like the Azan just went on. And literally was so loud, and I was trying to like turn it off, and it wasn't turning off. And then literally like the professor like ignored it like for a few seconds, and then he's like, guys, whoever it is, can you please like turn it off? And I'm like trying so hard, and I'm just like, turn it off, and it's not. And then I'm like, what should I do? And I'm like, it's as embarrassing as it may seem, but I have to get out of this class. So literally, imagine the stairwell. I'm like literally just going up, and it's like Allahu Akbar. I'm like literally going up, and as soon as I got out of the class, it finished. And I was just like, I ain't going back. Literally, I just waited till like the class was done, and then I went back. It was so
Grabbed your
embarrassing.
stuff.
But literally, I
man.
didn't grab my stuff. I had to wait till everybody leaves, then let me just come and get it. Because it seemed like as if I was like I didn't do it on purpose. Like it seemed like as if I was disrespecting the professor, or because it's easy, right? You can turn it off. But the irony, like it wasn't turning it off, and I was doing everything. I was like putting under like my like legs, or just I tried everything, and it was just bad luck. So, yeah. Literally, that was my story. What about you, Doctor?
Dr. Alaa, any experiences?
So mine are not as nearly as funny as you guys, but I remember it was my first med school interview, and like for me that was a huge big deal, right? And I was actually 7 or 8 months pregnant. Like I was like really pregnant, and of course I didn't want to come in as like the stereotypical like hijab wearing Muslim woman who's pregnant. And I tried everything I can to like hide my belly, right? And so I shopped, like I went through every single mall trying to find like a suit that would like not show that I was pregnant. And so I thought I did a great job. And I was in line, and someone like from behind me comes up to me and was like, "Oh, hey, congratulations. Like, are you expecting?" And of course, like I couldn't say yes. Like this, I was like undercover. Like I really did not want to portray that I was pregnant. And I was like, no, like with a flat face, like no. And she like turned super red, and she's like starts apologizing, and like my heart is racing. I'm like, what do I do like in this situation? And of course I was like, okay, like I can't lie to her. And so like after a minute I was like, I'm just kidding. Yes, I am. And like this relief, like, I could just see it on her face. And she was like, oh, well, I just wanted to say congratulations and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, thanks. And I was like, okay, I'm obviously not hiding this well enough. The rest of the interview went pretty well.
That's so awkward. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I guess the moral of the story here for any guys listening, don't comment on women unless you know for 100% fact that they're pregnant.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless she tells you, that's the only way that you can like be sure.
Yeah, that's true.
Wait, was
I
it
think with anybody,
was it a guy?
not just guys, but girls too.
Right, yeah, because
Was-
it was a female who asked me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I feel like even it doesn't have to be guys. I think even girls, I think we should respect people's like privacy in the sense like whether they want to disclose it, whether they don't, whether they're even in that frame of mind. I think people just need to understand that, like, unless it's not
Right.
spoken out, just keep it hush hush.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
I have
That's
a
a good
funny story as well. So basically, for my business school program is a little interesting in that it's like a double major, and then the business program starts in the third year. So last year was my third year, and we had like orientation and everything because it's basically like a new program. And for the first 2 years of my university, I basically like stuck to like my Muslim friends, but in a business environment, like Muslims are very much a minority. And so I had no idea what a pre was. Like I had no idea what it was. And so my friends, my section mates, my classmates basically come up to me. They're like, "Hey, the mentors that we have, they're organizing this pre. Do you want to come?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, they're mentors for our program. So there's no way this can be like partying and drinking. It's probably just like board games or whatever." And so I'm like, "Okay, yeah, of course. Like who wouldn't want to go to like a backyard board game night?" Naive. I was so naive. Oh my god. So I end up there, and all I see are people playing like beer pong. And there's like, it was so nasty. Like now that I think of COVID, there was like this plastic bag. Imagine like a huge Ziploc bag with like some sort of alcohol in it. And there was like a little faucet where people would go and like slap the bag and then open the faucet and just take a drink. And I was like, how are you spreading this among like 50 or 60 people? But anyways, they claimed to have like non-alcoholic drinks and games or whatever, but like there was barely anyone there and everyone was doing their thing. And I remember distinctly that I was there for about an hour. I stuck to the guys who weren't playing beer pong, the few, and I remember it was Maghrib time. I'm in this like place and I have to think about like praying Maghrib. And so I go outside, I see a parking lot. I'm like, okay, sweet. I'm gonna go to this parking lot, put my prayer mat down, I'm gonna pray, and then I'm gonna bus home. As I'm walking out, a group of people are coming in. They're like, "Hey, where are you going? The party hasn't even started." I'm like, "Oh, I was gonna take a quick phone call." Or I said I have like a quick appointment. I'm like, appointment with God, clearly, right? And so I ignored them. I go pray, and I felt so weird. Like as soon as I prayed, I bussed home. As soon as I got home, I threw my clothes in the washer and I prayed again because I was like, I don't know if my prayer even counted. Like it was in such a weird environment. After that, if anyone ever called me to a pre, I'm like, no, thank you. I'm just gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna work out. I'm gonna do my own thing.
I
And
don't know.
so,
I didn't even know what pre was till you just mentioned it.
yeah, I
this is
think
my
it stands for like pre-party or something. I don't know. It's
I
like the
think
the
I
pre
think
to the actual thing.
pre-drink, is that what it?
Maybe.
Is it
Bro,
like freshies like in university? Like fresh day or something like that?
Fresh
Like
go?
when I went to when I went to university like in the UK, like literally actually, so I did some like education in Canada and then I did some in the UK. So there they called it like freshers day. Like it's where people like met each other and like was it something like
Oh,
that? Faizan?
Frosh week?
yeah, I
Frosh
think
week,
we
yeah,
call
yeah,
it,
yeah.
yeah, we call it Frosh Week. It's like the orientation week.
Like
Yeah,
fresh day.
yeah, yeah.
This is my embarrassing moment as well.
But now you know.
Now I
Now,
know.
yeah. Now, if a group of 20-year-olds ever invite you to a pre, you know what to say.
Yeah, I don't think
Say
20-year-olds are gonna invite me anymore. I'm too old for that.
Uh, Anyways, I
Lucky
know.
you.
Okay, kind of building off of Munib's story about prayer. I know all of us are in completely different industries. We have different experiences. So I'm just curious, like in your sort of journey so far, how has prayer been for you? Because I'm assuming here that all of us are practicing Muslims. We try our best, and I'm especially curious about Alaa because med school hours aren't your traditional sort of 9 to 5. And so, how do you kind of manage that while working super long shifts, whether it's in the morning or the night, and then being on call? And so, yeah, we'll
Yeah.
start off with you, and then we'll go to Munib and Fatima.
Yeah, so I agree. It's super difficult. It's something that if you don't have, prayer or salah as your priority, it is so easy to miss. especially in like a fast-paced environment like in the ER. So to step back, I think in medical school, it was honestly the easiest to make time for prayer, because in the first 2 years, they're mostly classwork. And so, if we're sitting down listening to a lecture and it's time to pray, usually it's like around lunchtime anyway. So it was super easy to find like an empty classroom, go into a little corner and pray. The second 2 years, they were mostly like clinicals. And so they were a bit more challenging as to find time and to find a location, right? Because you need like a quiet place. You don't want to just pray in the, in the halls or anything like that. And so it was a little bit trickier. But I think the hardest time for me was during residency, which is, the true bulk of medical training. And we would work crazy long hours. I would work, 28-hour shifts, 30-hour shifts. We would work overnight. And so those are like 5 prayers. You can't miss all of them, right? Like, to be completely honest, yes, I've missed 1 or 2 and I would come home and I would, make them up. But if you are spending 28 hours in the hospital, that's, Fajr to Isha, like those are your 5 prayers. You can't miss 5 out of the 5. And so it was difficult for me if I, didn't really think about it, they would be missed like that. If I was more like a timer to remind me, hey, Maghrib is at this time, and my alarm would go off, it would be much more helpful. So, for example, there would be times where I would get to the hospital before Fajr time, and so I couldn't pray it at home. So I would come to the hospital. We would receive something called sign out. So like the night team would sign out to the day team, and we would have to sit through that. Literally, I would have maybe 5 minutes to quickly go find a room, pray Fajr before having to go around and actually see my patients before the team starts, like the actual team rounds. And so literally in 5 minutes, if somebody were to stop me or I had a page or something like that, it would be easily missed. So I think for me, it was just knowing that, hey, my prayer is gonna have to be a priority. And trying little things to help me remember was the only thing that saved me. So I would literally, the day before, just make alarms on my phone, all of them on. So it was Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, and Isha, and just try to make it through the day.
Wow. Yeah. And you were also pregnant / had a young child at the same time. So I'm sure.
Yeah. So get this, like during intern year, I was also pregnant with my daughter. And so intern year is, I think, the hardest, most difficult year during medical training because the learning curve is really steep. I had my daughter towards the end. And so after that, there's breastfeeding and there's pumping. So literally, I would have a time where I would be sitting down, listening to a lecture. We had our afternoon lecture, so it was during lunchtime. I would eat lunch, listen to the lecture, pump, and make like wudu and pray, and answer pages. And as soon as that hour was up, like everything, I would put everything away and then quickly like finish seeing patients and getting new admissions. So it was crazy.
Did someone say superwoman?
Yeah, I was just about to say.
I really don't like that phrase.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's not. No, I appreciate you saying that. But honestly, like the amount of things that are expected from women and the lack of support that we get is terrible. So, but going back to that main point, like you need to know what your priorities are. And mine were prayer and my daughter. Like I needed to pump for her. So there was no way I was going to stop that. And so it just a matter of making it work, finding the time and multitasking.
Oh, subhanallah, man, may Allah
Yeah.
reward you. That's a
Yeah,
lot of stuff that you
mashallah.
had to go through, starting with the 28, 30 hour shifts and
Yeah.
the pregnancy, and
Sure.
just that's a lot.
It's
That's a
not
lot.
easy, yeah. I think I agree with her. Like, I think the credit isn't due at all, like, where it needs to be. And I think,
Hmm.
like, women have it really hard. And just, what sister said, I can only imagine how tough it was for you.
Yeah.
But
But
again,
alhamdulillah,
I
you're
think,
here now. Sorry, go
yeah,
ahead. Go ahead.
no, what
But
Munib
alhamdulillah,
said,
you've
Allah will
done
reward you.
you've done so much. I'm so proud of you. That's crazy.
I
You
appreciate
know,
We
I
all
I I love seeing Muslims go far in like whatever industry it is. So like I don't know, just hearing that story, it just made me really happy. So just
it.
like I'm so proud of you.
No, and I
yeah.
agree with you. I feel like it makes me really happy to see, like, mashallah, like, we're so diverse here. Like, our group, like, we're in so many different fields. And to see, like, each one of us, inshallah, like, be a leader in our field, I mean, that's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Munib is
That's
nodding
beautiful.
along like he's gonna be the head cast of The Simpsons. That is like new creative.
You never
Maybe The
know.
Simpsons, yeah.
Uh,
Make a Toronto version of The Simpsons, and
That'll be
I'll be the
interesting.
host.
yeah. Munib, let's stick with you. How's prayer been for you at we talked a little bit about retail and
Yeah.
at the mission, but how was it at your like engineering job?
So I'll start off with uni and then I'll hop over to engineering. Honestly, with uni, like alhamdulillah, I'm so blessed to have a prayer room there, and the prayer room had a wudu room. So like sometimes it's hard to like, find a place to make wudu, but this had two in one, and honestly it was the easiest thing ever. You would go make your prayers, and it was only like 2 minutes from all my lecture classes. All my classes, just because UYT is a pretty small university, like it's not huge, and like all my lectures were pretty much in the same hall or like another hall, so it was not difficult at all. Like alhamdulillah, I was very happy with that. Moving on to engineering, when I first got into the field, I used to work at one location. So we have two locations, one's in Darlington and one's in Pickering. When I used to work at Darlington, the hours are not too long, like the regular hours we have. It's 7 to 2:30. So if I want to pray dhuhr, I can come home and pray usually, but sometimes dhuhr ends a little earlier, so I would kind of find a place to pray. But usually I wouldn't stay too long at that job. Now the new position I have, or I've had for about a year now, we work a lot of 12-hour shifts. So now with the 12-hour shifts, it does get a lot more difficult. I can't imagine 28 and 30-hour shifts, because that just blew my mind just listening to
Mm.
that. But 12-hour shifts were hard enough, because you'd have to, like, if I was in the station, like with the 12-hour shifts, we have to go in the station. I have to kind of like find a place to make wudu, and then finding a place to pray. There's not a lot of rooms in the station where you can just use, right? So I'd have to kind of like make an excuse. I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go back to my desk, and the walk to the desk, the walk back to my office is like 20 minutes. So like you'd have to like leave for like 40 minutes, or I would just like combo it with my lunch. So for example, sometimes we do overnight 12-hour shifts or day 12-hour shifts. But the blessed thing is my desk is right here, the prayer room is right here. So there's enough Muslims at OPG for me, like Ontario Power Generation. Sorry, Allah, I didn't say the name of the company, but Ontario Power Generation, there's enough Muslims that we have a Jummah weekly, and then it stopped because of COVID. But we have someone to do the khutbah, so it's nice. I don't have to leave work early on Jummahs or anything like that. Um, but yeah, back to those 12-hour shifts, I kind of have to like figure out when to do my lunch so I could pray on time. Or sometimes I'd have to like put two prayers together, like go and pray Asr and then wait 5 minutes and then pray Maghrib.
Yeah.
So it didn't feel right, but it was the best I could do. And then sometimes like it happens, like we'd have to miss our prayer, which is unfortunate, but then you just have to kind of make up for it afterwards. But yeah, all in all, I really love my job. Like alhamdulillah, it's a very blessed place to work, and like the freedom for me to just go and pray, they respect it. Like the only thing is, when I first got hired, it was on a Thursday. So I asked my manager, I was like, tomorrow is Friday prayers. Do you mind if I like leave for like 30 minutes? He asked me to have lunch, okay? And I felt so bad because I just got hired. And I'm like, tomorrow's Friday. Can I just go to Friday prayers? And he's like, play? Like, what do you want to play? And I'm like, no, Friday prayers. And he's like, play? And I'm like, no, like, I have to pray. And he's like, oh, okay, yeah, no, 100%. And I was like, do you know if they do it like here at the station? Because at first I worked at a different building, and he's like, no, but you can go for however long you want and come back whenever you want and just make up for the time afterwards. And I was like, sweet, like perfect. But all in all, alhamdulillah, like amazing, like environment to work.
Do you have to say that just for legal purposes, or?
No, I promise you, it's actually like I didn't expect a prayer room right in front of me, like in that same building. Like I said, in the old building that I worked at the other location, I'd have to like find a place. But this one has a prayer room, just because in Pickering there's a lot more Muslims, right? And it has one in every building. So Jummah prayer,
Wow.
there's one close to the station. There's one in another building. I think there's one in the station as well, where they do the Jummah prayer, but it's just limited because it's not that big. But alhamdulillah, the amount of Muslims that work there have made it possible for us to kind of have our Jummah, have our 5 daily prayers. And I think they do 5 daily prayer Jamaat, like not obviously not like 5 daily, but like the morning Zuhr and Asr, like if it's within that to 4 or 5 o'clock, they do Jamaat there. Like sometimes I actually miss it most of the time because I have meetings or whatever during that time. So I usually go pray by myself, but they even do Jamaat. Like
That's
crazy.
I think,
Well, alhamdulillah.
I don't know, I'm just echoing from what Lindy said. I feel like things are becoming more normalized. I think people are starting to be aware of our rituals, and I would say our like time of prayers. And I think like it's becoming more of like an understanding, I think, like aspect.
Yeah, and I love that. That's it's really nice, really nice. I really appreciate it. Fatima, your turn.
I think I have a lot more of a similar experience, similar to Munib. I think whether I was in university, I think I kind of made it very apparent to my professors. If, let's say, example, if I had to pray, and I would like, enter the class a little later. Especially, I believe when I was in law school, like that's where like classes were a bit more small, so people would know if you came late. So I think I would let my professors know way in advance that, listen, like, I have to pray. And I don't think I've ever experienced that sort of like why, like because even in university there was prayer room, and even when I started to work, like I work in a corporate place besides the interviews. I think again they're so flexible, and I think everywhere I've ever worked, I think it was very like understanding that yes, okay, you have to pray. And I think alhamdulillah, I've never had any restrictions on that.
My experience has actually been really different because I've only had a corporate job this year and last year for my internship. And because of COVID, they've both been completely virtual. And so I actually haven't fully experienced what it would be like. And like Friday, kind of like a half day, kind of not a half day. So I haven't actually experienced that. But I do know that last year when the masjids and stuff were open here, it's just a thing in Ontario. So but when they were open, I remember I just told my manager like, hey, I'm gonna block off this 1 hour, I'm gonna go pray, and they were completely fine with it. I think generally, by the way, I work at Pepsi for anyone listening. Generally it's that they want you to get the work done, and they're not really concerned too much about when you're going to do it or like micromanaging your work. Obviously, if you have meetings, you might have to like shift things around here and there, or maybe go to a later Jummah or an earlier Jummah, whatever. But I think generally, to your point, they've been pretty accepting of it. And I think now that we're probably moving into more of like a flexible work environment, not Alaa, because you're still going to have to be like doing your own thing as a doctor, but for corporate sort of roles, there's probably going to be more flexibility in terms of like work from home and whatnot. And I do think a lot of Muslims, especially, are probably going to capitalize on working from home on Fridays, which will make their Jummah days easier and whatnot, because everyone sort of had to do that. And so I'm sure a lot of places will probably be more flexible and kind of caring towards that sort of thing. So yeah,
inshallah, hopefully.
Yeah, I do think though, it's really promising, and it's really nice to hear all of that. But then I think it's upon us to take the initiative of letting them know and actually making it a priority. And then now it's upon us, right? Like literally, we don't have like any more excuses. If everybody's been so understanding. So
I think Dr. Ali said it really well. I think it's yours. It's up to you whether you want to make this a priority, because I think people are flexible, but they need to know whether that's something you're devoted to. So I think I agree with you. I think it's all falls on us, not on the company, not on anyone. It's on us.
Yeah, no, guaranteed. And plus, sometimes you do get a little bit intimidated or scared to ask your manager because I don't know, you just feel like they'll judge you because they know you're Muslim or something of that sort. Like for example, one of my friends was working in like a film kind of thing, and I guess she asked if she can take Eid off, and after she asked if she can take Eid off, the manager started acting very disrespectful towards her because I guess he didn't know that she was Muslim. So I guess there's that kind of in the back of your mind, you kind of make up that scenario before you even go ask. You'd be like, oh, they might start disrespecting me if they know I'm Muslim or something like that. But I mean, you got to kind of take your chances. And do you really want to work in a place like that where they don't respect you? Like, you got to
Or
ask
accept
yourself
you
that
for who
question as
you
well.
are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's
I think
definitely easier.
go ahead.
I think it's definitely easier to, I guess, let your needs be known in the beginning rather than waiting later.
Right.
Guaranteed.
True.
I wanted to ask specifically Alaa and Fatima, and this is a question that I've had with a few of my female friends, and they've always kind of hinted at, especially the ones that wear the hijab, that they might have to at some point maybe rethink the hijab based on what their professional goals are, or they will have to come to terms with the fact that just where they want to be and wearing the hijab is just it's at a conflict, and they have to compromise one or the other. So I'm curious, when you were doing those 28-hour shifts and having children and kind of being not that word that you don't like, but basically being superwoman, did that thought ever come to your mind, that me as a hijab wearing future doctor, like where I want to go,
Right.
Am I gonna have to sacrifice at some point?
I think I wanted to bring up a point. I'll definitely answer your question, but before I do, I don't know if you guys heard about something in psychology called like the spotlight effect, where you think everybody's looking at you. Like, do you ever have those moments where like you're in a room or you're in a meeting or whatever, and you think like there's literally a spotlight on you, right? Like you are under this light and everybody's watching you and seeing everything that you're doing. So it's actually a thing. And for me, I think the hijab like multiplied that. Like this like literal piece of cloth, I thought that, it created some sort of like mega light that people will notice me. And then therefore anything that I do, people will see. And it makes you so self-conscious. But I wrote about this on my like Instagram posts, and because I do think it's a real thing where it's all in our heads and not on our heads, right? Like these are thoughts that we come up with, and it causes us to be fearful. It causes us to not leap at like different opportunities. It makes us, really self-critical. And in most of the time, nobody's really judging us, and nobody's really like looking at us or watching every move. So that was something I had to kind of sit down and say, all right, these are all my thoughts. None of this is actual like facts. There is no spotlight over my head. Like this hijab does not automatically like say, hey, look at me. And once I was able to like remove those thoughts, I found it easier to just be myself and to go after what I want, especially like leadership roles. So that was something that I had to learn. The thing is, alhamdulillah, I think I've been blessed where I really don't think the hijab in medicine was a hindrance. I still was able to do everything that I wanted to. was still able to participate in everything. Yes, there were times where like it was physically in the way. So like, for example, like during our surgery rotations where everything has to be sterile. We need to wash like in a certain way. We need to wash our hands and our arms like all the way up to our elbows. Like our neck has to be, exposed and certain things like that. It was difficult, like trying to navigate through this whole scrubbing in process. But there are always solutions to many of our issues and many of those problems. And so, again, it has to be up to the individual to take it upon themselves to be like, okay, I see this as a potential problem. How am I going to expose my arms and wash in front of people? Or, what am I going to do? And there was a solution. I would find out the times of the surgeries that I was supposed to scrub into. I'd get there like 20 minutes earlier. I'll be the only one at the sink. So I'll wash, normally. And then once you go into the sterile room, you put on your gown and now you are fully covered. When it came to like the covering your hair, I would just put one of those nets. Or there were other things that we used to like, put over our hijabs and stuff, but there were solutions to everything. And so alhamdulillah, I don't think that it was a hindrance. I think mostly they were just thoughts that I was telling myself that it was going to be a hindrance. And just, small issues that we had to find solutions for. But I think it may be different in the corporate world. I think it may even be harder, in the corporate world.
Kind of going off of what Alaa was talking about in terms of, the hijab in medicine specifically wasn't necessarily, I guess, a hindrance. But for Fatima, for yourself specifically, do you think that, if one day you do decide to put it on, that, it might serve as, some sort of barrier to whatever your long-term goal is? Or have you seen, your friends or your relatives or your coworkers even who do wear the hijab, have they seen any sort of like any of these barriers?
So I think I would say this is mixed reviews. I think I've seen coworkers at my workplace that who wear hijab and are doing way better than me. So and I don't wear hijab, so I don't think if you don't wear hijab as if that's a certain advantage. I don't think or a disadvantage. I feel like in terms of I don't know. I think like in terms of racism, you could be a massive target for sure. But then again, if they find out you are a Muslim and you don't wear hijab, that's also your target. So I think like my mother wears a hijab and she's a teacher's assistant. There's times where she has experienced racism and there's times where people have been wonderful to her. So I think it's like having that mixed, I would say, experience. But I think, as I was saying before, I think it's up to you how you see yourself and how you utilize, let's say, for those who do wear hijab, to see that as a strength or a weakness is up to them. And to women who are as of yet not ready to wear the hijab, like myself, and inshallah, I pray one day I do get to wear it, that, I'm ready and that I think I'm able to embrace the good and the bad that comes my way.
I think, hijab is just a visual, quick representation, right? Like you see someone wearing hijab, she's Muslim. I think that's what it is. Like that, there's a lot more to it, of course, but like for the most part, it's just a quick visual representation of you being a Muslim. And that's what it is, right? But I mean, what about the guys? Like guys don't wear the hijab, yet they, you still show and portray yourself as Muslim in many different ways. And so hijab is just one way you can show that you are a Muslim, but there are so many other ways. And so, like you said, I mean, you make it known to others by, your, the way you talk, the way you walk, the way you interact, your name. There's so many other ways that, you can show people that you're a Muslim, and that's beautiful. So and the guys too, like they have to show themselves as Muslim and they don't wear the hijab.
And one thing I want to say to all those women who don't wear hijab and who are Muslims, I understand their backlash as well, because a lot of people presume that because you don't wear the hijab as if you're less of a Muslim, or as if you're not that great of a human being. But I feel like, again, what you said, I think it's all about your actions and who you are as a person. That's the first and foremost thing, one thing we need to tick off. And then, of course, I feel like, you know, I feel like it's so important to wear the hijab, and I'm pro it, but I feel like you need to wear it with the intention that is, this is something that's between me and God. And it shouldn't be something that I should now feel that, okay, like, as if I'm above, let's say, someone who isn't wearing one. And I think my mother is a great, I would say, um, a role model to me, because, both of her daughters don't wear it. And not once has she ever said, wear it. She's always been like, I'm wearing it because I choose to wear it. And that's why she wore it, I think, more so recently when she went to Umrah. And then she started wearing it, and she's like, I had my journey. And I found like I would say, decision, like, to be like, okay, I want to wear it just like I did. And you shouldn't feel like you're less of a Muslim. Just, again, what sister said, your actions and your speech and your behavior and how you treat people, that should speak louder than anything else.
I don't really know how to like proceed from here. Like, it's so like beautiful and wholesome, like what you're talking about, and like kind of echoing exactly what Allah said. Like, it's thank you, first of all, thank you for sharing. It's really interesting to hear your story and kind of understand that what you mentioned is really really important. I think that applies to like really any action that we do for Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Like, it has to be, first we have to go in with the right intention, not necessarily I gotta check this off because I gotta do my 5 daily prayers or whatever it may be. And so that's a really important like moral story to keep in mind, is that like your actions should follow your intentions. And that's not to say that like if people are struggling they should just give up, like absolutely not. But like when it comes to like big things like this, it's very very important to make sure your heart is in the right place, because once it is, then you're gonna have like you're gonna hold on to your faith like anything. So
Yeah.
And so Allah make it easy for you guys, because honestly, nobody knows what you guys actually go through with the guy. Like, people have no idea how that feels. And because, say, for example, I'm not a visible Muslim, because I don't technically wear a hijab. I have a little beard. I could be Christian. I could be anything. But for you guys, it is a little bit more difficult to be in that situation, because there's, like, we know, like, for example, that London attack, there are a lot of racist people out there. And just because nobody gets run over by a truck every day doesn't mean that there isn't Islamophobes out there. So I know that you guys do go through a lot, and it's probably extremely difficult. So to all the girls who don't wear hijab, who are scared to wear hijab now, just know that you guys have 100% of our support as guys. And any time, we should always stand up for you guys, regardless of what the situation is. I just think that that's really important, just because we're all Muslim, we're all brothers and sisters, and we don't know, like I said, we don't know what it is like to be a hijabi, but if we see hijabi sisters being attacked in any way, we should be the first one to stand up and be like, nah, that's not happening. Not on my watch. I'm sorry, but
And
I
I
one
have
thing.
a quick story that I wanted to share. Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
Because I really like what Munib mentioned. So I know I talked about how in medicine, like, I didn't have a lot of struggles when it came to hijab, but now that I remember certain things, of course there were many times where there's racism in medicine. And so there was one time where it was in surgery, so I scrubbed in. I got to enter the OR. I was standing by the surgeons, and they were all men, right? So there was a whole group of men, from the person, the scrub tech, to the actual surgeon, to the residents. They were all men. And here I am, a Muslim woman, right, standing in the middle of them. And one of the scrub techs started like saying really racist remarks, and I was still a medical student. So in medicine, there's hierarchy, and so being a medical student, you are like the lowest in the hierarchy. And so he started making really inappropriate racist remarks. And here I am, the med student, like I couldn't really say anything. I couldn't speak out. And I was like, at first I was shocked. I was like worried. I can't say what I want to say. And everybody was quiet, like nobody defended me. So I kind of just stood there and I'm like preparing if I should say something. Should I make it, professional, or should I just let it all out? Should I talk back? Should I remain calm? And he's going. And finally, one of the guys who later turned out to be Muslim, I didn't know, stopped him in his tracks. And he was a surgery resident. So he was higher up on the hierarchy. He wasn't the top surgeon, but he was higher than I am. And he told him, "You need to stop." And he was really firm, and he literally just said that, and the guy did stop. So and I was like, "Oh my God, thank you so." Like I didn't say this because, of course, I still didn't talk, but like deep down, I was like, "Wow, thank you so much for standing up for me." But it goes to show you that we all have to support one another. Hijab wearing, non-hijab wearing, Muslim guy, Muslim woman, like we all really need to stand up for one another. And it goes to show you that once we go higher up on the ladder, it's easier to do that. So had that surgeon, that top surgeon, was someone more decent, or if he was Muslim, or if he was, again, just even non-Muslim, but if he was a more proper human being, he would have made that guy stop. He would have told him, "Leave my OR room." Like he would have been more supportive. And I was like, you know what? Maybe one day I'm going to be in your spot so that if it happens, like Munib said, not on my watch. So I do think that we need to help one another, and we need to go into positions of leadership, no matter what field we're in, so that we have the role, the position, the power to stop those things from happening.
I agree, 100%. And I think we need to together change the narrative how people look at us. I think that's important as well, because I think just recently I was looking at, I think was there is Ahmed, he was saying that in media it's portrayed as all nasty things, and I think we as a community speak up and change the narrative of our own stories and say we're not those people that portray us. That's not who we are. And I think the only way we could do that, and echoing from what Munib said and what you said, sister, is we need to have each other's back. That we need to support one another, because sometimes I feel like we are within our own communities. There's so many differences, and we're each other's enemies because things are not being followed the way this certain group is following. And I feel like that should be besides the point. I feel like the fact that we believe in just the fact that there is just one God, I think that in itself should make us all equal, and that we should love and accept each other and be there for each other. And if we just simply do that one thing, honestly, I don't think there would be anybody who would even dare lay a finger on us for no reason.
Agreed. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of transition from like the hijab to one other thing that I think a lot of Muslims do struggle with in their professional environment, which is dealing with alcohol. I know we kind of like talked about it in a funny way with the pre and all that stuff, but honestly, it is a real problem. And I think other different people have different sort of boundaries with how they deal with it. I know some friends that are like, absolutely not. I'm not going to a networking event that has beer or like wine being served. Other people are like, I might go to like a meeting, but I don't want to sit beside someone who's drinking alcohol. And then other people are like completely okay with it. Just, they're like, as long as I don't consume it. So even there's levels within that. So I'm just curious to hear, because we are all from different industries, what your experiences have been like with coworkers who, normalize the drinking culture and, everything really outside of work is just like drink and forget about your problems. And so how have you dealt with that? Have you had to make any, tough decisions, or have you had to give up on opportunities, or, opportunities for work, for friends, all of that stuff because of this real barrier? We can start with Munib, because I want some more data so I can make fun of him.
Yeah.
I had a feeling this was coming. Couldn't hold my laugh.
No, but my is like, honestly, I know in the corporate world, this is pretty difficult. Stop it. This is pretty difficult, but within the engineering world, there isn't that much going out. Like, the only thing it'll stop you is from making friends. And honestly, making friends sometimes is important, because networking with like managers, section managers, and stuff like that, it's nice because then they know your name. And when they know your name, it's much easier to get a position within their department, kind of move up. But the thing is, honestly, I just like, we've only had one real like work event where they went to a bar afterwards. And we all went. I was like, whatever. Like, obviously, you feel uncomfortable, but your whole team is there, so it's just kind of weird if you just not go. And you have free food too, so like, who passes out free food? But anyways, the food wasn't that good. We just played like billiards, and it was during my internship, so obviously I was trying to make like a good impression, so I can come back to the company, right? So, anyways, I built a good relationship with my manager. Kind of like, we played billiards. I played with him, and I beat him, and whatever. It was just kind of like a fun time. But that's kind of how he like remembered me. Like, when I needed a job in that position, we had a good relationship. I was just texting him, and I was going like, "Oh, like, this didn't work out. This didn't work out." He's like, "Don't worry, I got you," and he got me like a job, like, pretty easily, which was nice. Like, it was just a connection. But I think like, I personally don't go out and go like, "Oh, hey guys, let's go out," because I don't drink, and I don't like. There's a lot of things I don't do, like shisha and stuff like that, because other coworkers do that, and it's just weird. So I just avoid hanging out with like work friends altogether, because like, I'll do coffee, sure, but other than that, it's just, if it's after work hours, everybody's like, "Let's go grab a drink," right? So it just reduces your chances of knowing more people, which kind of sucks. But at the same time, it's your sacrifice, right? Because there is a North American young generations of nuclear in our power plant. It's just a bunch of young people, and most of their events that they have is like, "Oh, brewery events. We're gonna make alcohol. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that." Like, I don't really feel like I fit in, so I'm like, whatever, forget it. So that's why most of the time, like, I haven't met a lot of young engineers. I work with like 40, 50-year-old people, and they talk to me about their kids, which are my age. So it's just weird. And I just, whatever, I just vibe with it. And that's my kind of networking. But I technically don't need to do it unless I'm like looking to move up, move up, move up. But at the same time, inshallah, like, if I'm meant to move into certain departments, Allah will help me. Like, I don't necessarily need to go into those environments just to like be like, "Yo, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this." Like, alhamdulillah, so far I've been moving at a good speed, and I'm happy. I'm really happy. So I didn't need to make too many big sacrifices, or like any at all, to be honest. But alhamdulillah, I'm good. It's been a good run. Yeah.
The key takeaway I took from there is you're good at billiards, so that's another thing I'm gonna have to beat you at.
Bring it on. I used to have one in my basement, but then we sold it because my mom didn't like it. But I'm a pro, man. Bring it on.
All right, sounds good. Fatima, what are your experiences with like the whole drinking culture in your corporate world?
So, okay, so not, I didn't experience, I would say, more so here. But I remember when I was in the UK and I was working, I think the culture in the UK is very much surrounding alcohol. Like, I think after, here, I don't think I see it as much in Canada, but in the UK, oh my God, it's like literally you finish work, everyone is in the pub. And there, how like we have Tim Hortons every corner, they have a pub every corner in the UK, okay? And so I remember, but one thing, again, I feel like it's all on us, because the company that I worked in, and again, I love them, I think that has by far been my best employment in my whole life. If there's ever an opportunity for me to go back, I would do it in a heartbeat. They were so loving and understanding. I can't emphasize enough that I remember I was the only one that didn't drink and ate halal. And they would make sure that after work and whenever there was parties, they would make sure that they went to a restaurant that served halal food. That was next level. They didn't have to do that. And I remember and it was so emotional. There were times where I remember there were certain people who also didn't drink, right? There are also, like I would say, Western people who also don't prefer drinking. So they would make sure that if, let's say, the people who don't drink, they'll be like, hey guys, you should sit like closer to one another. Like let's say if one person's drinking alcohol, they'll be like, no, I don't want to sit with someone who's, and it wasn't out of disrespect. It was like, hey, I don't want to disrespect you by holding an alcohol glass right in front of you or next to you. So like, I feel like I want to take all of these as compliments because they were like, hey, I remember even when like, because my workplace had accommodations, so I would be living there, and certain people would be like, hey, do you want me to clean the fridge for you? Because I don't know if people put meat on non. Like they were so, I'm telling you, I can't emphasize how accommodating they were, and to such an extent. I'm about to share this. I don't think I've ever shared this, but there was this gala, like an event where royal, like Princess Anne, was literally like there, and I was part of like a co-host, and I had to go pray, and I got there late, and literally I prayed, I got myself ready, I went, and I was late. I was the last person. I think I did come before Princess for sure, but like the party already had started, and I remember I got there, and my managers, they're like, it's okay, fixing me up and like tying my heel, and they're like, okay, but you're ready, okay? And I'm like, what? Like, to be honest with you, I think they were an exceptional case. But they were so nice, and I think it's about you just making sure that this is your priority. I don't drink. I eat only halal. This is who I am. If you want to accept me, by all means. But it's not the end of the world if you don't. Right?
Mhm.
So it's a wonderful feeling when they do love you and they care for you and all these accommodations. But I know it's not all the time. But in that experience, I've had it really lucky.
Well, your story sounds a lot like the people in this room. We're all royalty. We took a prayer break. It sounds like
Right?
Munib looks like a princess, like very, very
With
untangled.
his carrot.
Yeah.
She
Which is
left
not
me.
there.
She's on my ring light right now. That's why it keeps moving. And if I move her too much, she'll start yelling. So these dust things that are falling, that's her scratching herself. But anyways, let's continue.
So cute. But yeah.
But yeah,
No, alhamdulillah.
Alaa, how about I'm actually very unfamiliar with the drinking culture in medicine, so please shine as much light on this.
I actually think it's just like everything you've mentioned. Like everything you've mentioned, I'm like, yep, like it's no different at all. I think one of the challenges is it can be like socially difficult because for me personally, I'm a social person. Like I love hanging out with people. I love meeting new people. And not being able to do that like sucks. When you want to go out and have fun, but you're not comfortable going in a certain place. So it could be isolating. I think that was the most difficult part, where I want to go out and meet everybody and form relationships like y'all were saying, but I couldn't really do that. Like it was limited. I think we were able to coordinate like small activities at work, and so we couldn't drink at work, and so that was easier, right? Like we would have Thanksgiving parties or for different events, and so those were a lot easier, and those were a chance for me to like interact and socialize with everyone. Sometimes when like my co-residents wanted to go out after work, then maybe choosing a place that like Fatima was saying, that served non-alcoholic drinks or just regular food was an option. But I think the hardest part was that you couldn't really socialize as well as you wanted to. So you were limited into which events you could attend.
Yeah. Honestly, like everything that Munib, the princess, Fatima, as well as Allah has mentioned, all of that like is rings very true for me. Even at like the business school I was at, I think the biggest thing that you mentioned was that lack of social connection and the lack of friendships that you can make. It really does hurt, at least from my point of view, because as Munib was mentioning, it's like the networks that you create, they will serve you in the long term, right? Because you know the classmates that you're potentially giving up going to the bar with or whatever, 10 years down the line, they could be like a manager at Google, and if you want to work at Google, they could give you a referral. And for me in particular, I made like very little relationships and friendships within my like business school cohort. Most of my friends were from like the Muslim clubs on campus or just like through sports or whatever. And it was an active thought in my mind. I'm like, I know I'm being disadvantaged right now, but like, what can I do, right? It's like, like to Munib's point, it's like if I am meant to be at Google in 10 years, then Allah will make it happen one way or another. And you can try extra hard at networking through, setting up coffee chats and all of those things. So I do think it's a disadvantage for sure. But even what Alaa was mentioning earlier, like when there's a will, there's a way, right? There's always a way to make those things happen, even if that requires an extra hurdle.
Oh no, for sure. I agree with that. And like at the end of the day, Allah has a risk set. Like Allah knows how much we're gonna make, what we're gonna do. Plus, at the end of the day, if we can't network, we can't do this. There's a reason, and it's our choice. Even if we go and do that networking at the bar, even if we do, we're gonna end up in the same place that we're meant to be in within the 5 years. So Allah has that plan set for us. So if we just do it the Muslim way, or whatever it's called, like do it the halal way and just be halal, Allah's going to give us what we're meant to have. So at the end of the day, we might feel disadvantaged. It does hurt, like mentally, physically, like emotionally a little bit. But at the end of the day, like I said, we're going to get what's meant for us. So alhamdulillah for that. And
I want to echo from what you said. I think your rizq is written. It's Allah is going to give you what's for you. I think the initial fear that we have is like, again, voicing that this is our preferences, this is what we want, is the hardest thing. But when you do, there's times where either you'll be away from people that you shouldn't have even been in your company or presence, or sometimes by chance or luck, you meet people who are the most understanding. So I think either way, it's like win-win, because you distance from people who don't accept you for who you are, or sometimes you end up meeting people who are like, yeah, it's cool, it's normal, let's accommodate you because it's your religious preferences. So I think we need to simply take that rizq thing into consideration and just be like, you know what, whatever, like at the end of the day, let me have Allah's blessing. Let me do what is right thing to do. After that, Allah will take care of me.
Exactly. Yeah.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Fatima's out here dropping moral gems for anyone listening.
Yes, golden advice.
No, I'm just echoing for what you guys are saying. No, bless you.
Yeah.
I'm like literally taking away
you
your stuff.
You just summarize it the best. What can we do?
You do.
What I'm hearing is, thank you, Faizan. You're very eloquent in what you're saying. So that's what I'm hearing. I don't know. But
but I have to give it to Faizan. I don't know if I've ever shared this, so I don't know, maybe out of topic, but I have to say with him, like in terms of him organizing things and organizing all of these meetings, or even the interviews he organized for me for his group of friends, he is the most professional person. I have to give him for sure.
Sting.
This guy, I knew it. Couldn't let me have one, huh? Not even for like 5 seconds. Not even 5 seconds.
I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything.
Okay. You guys, this is fun.
Bro, like you know that phrase, like a picture speaks like 1,000 words. I could literally crop you and you would be a meme as when you were reacting to what Fatima was saying.
But there's I feel like, I don't know, sister, but I feel like there's a bro romance. There's this tension and this
I
love.
definitely feel it, but I'm just like staying quiet. Yeah, but
Yeah, let them have their moment.
Yeah.
It's okay. When I see you, I'll bully you in person. I only bully people I like. So
Oh, what a compliment! Thank you. My heart is just beating for
So
you,
what?
bro.
You not like us?
I don't know you guys. Bully you.
we'll let it slide.
We'll let that slide.
Oh shoot! I just shot myself in the.
Talk about losing
Shot myself
networking.
in the
I know,
foot.
right? No.
Munib, you're if you're ever in Texas, there's one person you don't want to meet.
Alaa.
Oh, man.
That's it. If I ever get sick and I'm at the hospital, in
Okay,
Texas,
I
I'm
remember
screwed.
this guy.
This
I
is
said,
the
but
guy from
after,
Live.
guys, after this COVID, we must meet, inshallah. Find ways to
Inshallah.
network within our, I would say, our social media, like, I guess, individuals, groups of people. I don't know if I said
I
that
agree.
right.
So Faizan might get messages late though because of his Android, but we'll
If
always
at
be
all.
on.
If he
If
doesn't
at all.
respond,
I was
within
waiting
a
for
month
the
or so.
If
I
his
was
phone
waiting for
doesn't
the Android
randomly
rules.
turn off, but
Or maybe for
inshallah.
Haiti, you can send him an iPhone as a gift.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I would
Yeah.
happily accept that.
I feel like because
Yeah, but if he knows how to use it,
no, but I feel like because Munib is roasting him the most, he should gift it.
Mm. Hey man, you keep talking about like Allah has the risk set and all that. So, bro, looks like you have more money than I do. So it could be,
Planning
you know.
something for you.
no, definitely not. I'm just a broke kid.
Yeah. Okay.
God.
Okay.
Anyways, let's continue with this podcast before I get myself in debt.
Okay. The last thing, honestly, I love the banter, by the way. The
Yeah.
last thing I wanted to ask, and we've sort of already hit upon this, but you know, if there's anything that you would like to add or mention, feel free. I just wanted to kind of ask a more like generic question in general. What are some sacrifices that you think, you know, your Muslim identity as well as some of the moral boundaries that we have to adhere to? What are some of those sacrifices that you've had to make along the way? You know, for better or for worse. I don't want to say for worse because you know, we as Muslims we shouldn't think like being a Muslim is a disadvantage to us. But yeah, I'm just curious, like you know, whether that be you know not attending. You know, we talked about the lack of social life and making friends, but if there's anything else that you would like to hit on within you know medicine, engineering, the corporate world, feel free.
I know.
Any
Yeah, I think there's a hadith, and I don't want to, you know, say it word for word. I don't know it word for word, but the meaning of it is that I think there will be a time where holding on to your faith will be as if you're holding on to like a piece of like hot coal or something like that. And God forgive me if I'm saying it incorrectly, but along those lines. And it's so true. It's you know staying true to your faith is not easy at all, and I guess just knowing that inshallah we'll be rewarded for every single sacrifice, and that is gonna be worth it inshallah. Like later on inshallah, like we will look back and say, you know, I'm so glad that I gave up this promotion, or I gave up this job, or I didn't enter this field just for the sake of you, Allah, and just for the sake of holding on to my religion. And inshallah, I can't wait to say that one day and to be happy with actually, you know, letting go of those things in the hopes that Allah will give me something better in the hereafter.
Inshallah.
I'm sure, even if we don't know it, there have been times where we had to let things go. And we had to endure many things, but it's for a bigger reason, and inshallah we'll be rewarded for it.
Inshallah, that was beautifully said. I love that.
Very beautiful. So true. I think we can sit here and let's say count all the sacrifices or I would say things that have hindered our at our growth and I would say our career because of, let's say, our identity. And I think what sister said was really eloquent, that at the end of the day, that should be trivial in the eyes of the bigger picture, the grand scheme of things. And I think no sacrifice is is I would say enough in like I would say as big as what we're going to be rewarded at the end, right? So if anything, we should be like, okay, good riddance, because at least like in front of God, at least my ticket is slowly booking its way to like you know to heaven. I hope so, inshallah. Like
Inshallah, inshallah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think we should honestly just alhamdulillah for all the sacrifices. Like alhamdulillah, this didn't work out. Alhamdulillah, like pretty much. My new favorite quote is alhamdulillah for everything, and it's just anything that happens, there's a reason for it. So it's just meant to happen. So if you sacrifice so and so for so and so for so and so, you were meant to do that because there is something better in store. Whether it's in this dunya or the next, we will receive it, and then we won't know until we get to that point, and then we'll be like, "Damn, Allah bless me." You know what I mean? You'll be like, "What? I wasn't expecting this," because Allah has something much bigger for you. So just like sacrifice. I don't like to use that word. Alhamdulillah. Just I'm blessed. Like you know what I mean? I appreciate it.
Like what you just said right now, it kind of reminded me, and I don't know, I don't want to quote unquote say anything, but isn't it true that if, let's say, example, we make du'as and if it doesn't come, like apparently all of them come true, but they come true in different ways, and one of them is that it won't come true in this life, but it will be beneficial for our afterlife, and it's been said that like when that day comes, we would have wished that none of our prayers in this life could have come true because the reward in afterlife is way bigger. So I think what all you guys said is just like I would say hands on, like pretty epic. That I think we have to look at it as if whatever comes our way, well and good. If it doesn't, then you know what, alhamdulillah, as Munib said, because at the end of the day, there's a bigger purpose that we need to keep in mind.
Once again, Fatima with the amazing summarizing. Sorry, go ahead, Faizan.
Copyrighted by Munib and Sister Alaa.
And Faizan. Just I don't know if you guys noticed, but I'm over here too. I don't know what it is. Fatima, like, why are you out for me today? Like, interrupting me. You're like colluding with like basically cyberbullying from Munib. Like, I don't know.
It's not intentional.
It's out of love. No,
We probably should have asked what kind of phone you have at the end of this.
Yeah,
I think it's coming from that.
Too early on.
You should have told us you had an Android.
Yeah, we'll have a conversation afterwards. Yeah, just to keep it keep it on track. But what I was gonna say was like the thing Munib mentioned about like saying alhamdulillah, and what Fatima mentioned about your du'as coming true. That, like, for me right now, I'm in my last year. I'm going into my last year of university, and I'm sure Munib can attest. Like, you start thinking about like full-time recruiting and like what's gonna happen, and like getting a job is like top of your mind. And being in a business school, I'm a very analytical person, so I was like going over like the employment reports, seeing all the statistics, seeing what the highest paid jobs were, and like what I could apply for, whatever. And one of the common things I noticed was the highest paid jobs recurrently were in like finance, in terms of like investment banking and private equity and all of those things. And the more research I did, the more I realized that that's literally working with like interest and riba and all of those things. I even spoke to a few Muslims in that industry, and they did say that that is a moral quandary almost. They chose to go down that path. Maybe they'll switch later on, but that's not something I was willing to do. But at the time, I kept thinking like, I wish, riba wasn't a thing so that I could, make so much more money, make six figures in like my third year or whatever. But then the more I even looked into it, I realize now, alhamdulillah, the type of personality I have, the type of lifestyle I want to live, even like take faith aside, is just kind of completely conflicting what investment banking and what finance really as a whole would be, because they work like 80-hour weeks, they work. A lot of them are on drugs just to be able to function properly. Like think like Wolf of Wall Street, really. And that, just like, even religion aside, like, why would I want to put myself through that if it's not beneficial for me? And so even when you bring that Islam back into the picture, it gives you like an additional moral, like, reassurance almost. Like, like, alhamdulillah, like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows, He has this hikmah that we don't have, and He has put these in place for a reason. And I'll be the first one to say, when you're going through it, it really sucks, and you start rethinking so many things. You're like, I wish. But at the end of it, I'm not even at the end of it. I'm still at the beginning of it. But I'm sure, inshallah, at the end of it, similar to Allah, I'll be able to look back and say, like, alhamdulillah, I made the right decision, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, for all of these things that really help you and benefit you in your long term. So yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for acknowledging me now, Fatima. I appreciate it.
No, Faizan, I agree with that, man. That's like, honestly, when you're looking for jobs, forget about the money. Like what I said, your risk is written, right? So whatever you're initially meant to happen, like, apply for every halal job that you possibly can. I know business does have a lot of interest, but every possible halal job that you can, apply, and whatever's meant to happen will happen. You'll get the interviews. Maybe you won't get the job, but you'll get interview experience for a job that's actually meant to be, that'll probably be paying more than that 100K. Like, who cares about 6 figures? Honestly, it doesn't matter. You just want a livable salary at the beginning, and inshallah you start to move up. But don't just close your mind towards 6 figures. Forget about that. Who cares?
Yeah.
Allah will give you enough for you to live a livable salary, because there's people in Yemen and Syria who don't even have enough to live day by day. Alhamdulillah, we have enough to live. Like, we get enough salary for a month or whatever it is. But like, honestly, don't forget about, like, don't focus too much on the money, because it'll come.
But one thing that I want to sort of interject is, one thing that I've witnessed and noticed is that there are people out there who are after money and who want, like, let's say that really, I would say, high priced life. But I feel like if anything is done in a contradicting way to our faith, that money either goes away at some point, like, it'll come to you, but then it'll go away somehow, or that money that'll sit in the bank will take your peace and mind out. It's like, fair enough, you can get that 6-figure salary or whatnot, even higher than that, but you'll either lose your peace of mind, or it'll come to you, you'll enjoy it for a short-lived time, but then it'll go away. And then you wouldn't know what to do with it. And I think, and that is with anything, whether, how people, think, okay, let me do this interest, or let me do this fraud, or let me do this or whatnot. Because at the moment, I work in an insurance company, and we have loads of fraudulent cases. And when I think about it, it's like, okay, they're taking money from, let's say, in a way that isn't correct, but then somehow God will take that same amount from another way. So it's like, we need to be so careful that at the end of the day, yes, of course, money in this life is important. We need to live a comfortable life, enough that we don't go astray. We don't do certain things just for the sake of money. If we have enough, we wouldn't need to worry about, like, people think of stealing or doing fraudulent things because they need money. I pray that Allah gives us enough that we never need to go on that path. But again, just to the people, it's like, it's never worth it, because Allah will, in this life or the after, will take it from you, and it's not worth it.
It's not just about the money. Like, there's so much to it, right? There's like blessings that come in many different forms. Like, your health is a blessing. So what are you going to do with all that money if, God forbid, like, you're not able, your health is not where it needs to be, or even like this pandemic, like, has really shown us that Allah has power. Of course, we know that Allah has power over everything, but it really showed us that, like, hey, if Allah wants to stop everything, he can, right? Like the whole world shut down and we couldn't travel, right? So like even if I have how much in the bank, like I couldn't use that money to go anywhere, right? Like it's amazing to me how yes, you could have all of that, but you need the barakah, you need Allah's blessings, you need the health, you need, the just the mental peace of mind and, family and loved one. There's so much to it.
Yeah, that's so true. And there, people out there who, let's say, they don't have, let's say, the high priced life. But honestly, I see them and they're way
The
happier.
iPhone life. They don't have the iPhone life.
They don't have the iPhone and they're happier. So, Faizan, are you content with
Very
that?
content. Alhamdulillah. But as we keep saying, risk is from Allah,
No.
right? So Android was from Allah too.
No, but you guys are hilarious. But yeah, no, I think, yeah. In short, I think we just need to be more. I think contentment is such a big thing. I feel like I pray that we all, one thing also though, guys, and I want to say this, it was in my head. Sometimes, like, especially with social media, I feel like everybody's a philosopher nowadays. Everybody's like a scholar nowadays, and right. And I fear when I have to either, like, let's say, speak or give my point of view. I always pray that Allah Mia, keep me humble, one and foremost, but don't make me contradict my words. Don't ever put me in a position where I contradict my words or I contradict what I've said. So I think irrespective of anything, we just simply need to be more careful and self-aware that whatever we put out there, I pray that we're strong enough to preach it as well. So that is also, I think, the biggest thing in my head.
I guess we're kind of nearing the end of this, so I wanted to end it off with an interesting story that I think captures a little bit about, we keep talking about like risk and then kind of like believing in Allah's plan. So I remember last year when I was looking for internships, I applied to this one company, and I'm based in Toronto, but the company was in Ottawa. So for reference, for Allah, that's like 6 to 8 hours away. And this was in the middle of the weekday. And the interview, I remember vividly, I remember the story. It was on a Thursday. And I had classes later that evening. And I was like, I don't drive. My parents are living in a different city because I'm in a different city for school. Like, how am I supposed to get to Ottawa? It's 8 hours away. And I got to come back the same night just so I can make class the next day. And I reached out to them. I'm like, hey, like, is there any way we can, this is before COVID, by the way. I'm like, is there any way we can do this, like, interview? It was a first rounder too. It was like, can we do this online, virtual? Like, just like if we progress later, like, I'd be happy to come down to Ottawa, but but for the first round. And they're like, no, unfortunately we can't. It is what it is. I was like, fair. I guess it's not meant to be. I'm 2 days later, I got an interview with Pepsi where I'm at right now for the exact same day on that Thursday. And I got that interview, but here's where you should probably question my choices and my priorities. So I had made a promise to my friend in between that 3-day span. It was such a weird thing. I promised my friend that I would hang out with him that Thursday evening. And that interview was on Thursday, like, afternoon. And if I went, and this was in my parents' city, so it was 2 hours away. So if I went and I came back, I wouldn't be able to hang out with him. This is so weird. And so I emailed them and I'm like, hey, is there any chance that we could do this interview online? And they agreed. They actually agreed. They agreed to do the interview online. And the interview went well. And that's the internship I got. And then now I'm doing a second term with them this year. And inshallah, you never know. I might even return with them full time. So that just kind of goes, please, whoever's listening, don't prioritize hanging out with friends over interviews. That's probably not a good bet. But in general, things are just meant to be. And, if you let one thing go, this wasn't like a haram job or anything. It just happened to be that it didn't work out. But, there are certain things that are meant for you in life. And there are certain things that aren't meant for you in life. And sometimes they're both going to be equally accessible. And somehow the one that's meant for you and the one that's better is just going to end up making its way in your life, and for the better, honestly.
Well, that's right. I gotta go. That was
Story.
pretty good.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah, I guess with that we can end it. Unless I'll open up the floor if anyone has any last minute, moral gems, Fatima, or any advice or anything like that that they would like to share. Feel free. But yeah, it's just kind of
I'm
whatever
gonna
you.
let them go first, and then I'm just gonna say exactly
And then
what
she's
they
and then she's just gonna copy what we say and then say it
literally.
better.
That's all I've been
Um,
doing this whole time.
yeah, whatever. I just have one quick piece of advice for everybody who watches this. Don't get an Android.
I was not expecting.
I wasn't either. I was thinking something really motivational.
That's
Oh
that's a,
god.
that's about it. But no, this is great talks. Honestly, I guess the take backs from the end of this is you got risk. Stand up for our Muslim sisters or Muslim brothers, whoever it is. Um, and the third thing I forgot, but honestly, don't make money your number one mindset. You know what I'm saying? Money is not important. Those are the three take backs that I got. So that's just a summary of our talk. If you're only watching the last 5 minutes of this podcast, but yeah, Fatima, on to you.
Now I was gonna let sister go first and then take
Oh,
first.
sorry. Best for last, obviously.
Okay, so I think I want to add on, stay true to yourself and your beliefs. Figure out what your priorities are. Like, sit down with yourself and list them out. Just as you would like list out your goals, list out your priorities, and and then go for it with Allah. As long as you're pleasing to Him and you're doing everything and you're striving to improve yourself, then inshallah you'll be rewarded for it.
From what Munib and Sister Allah and what Faizan said, stealing everything of theirs. No, but in all honesty, there's one thing that I live by, and I wish all the people who are struggling, let's say, or have struggled in their life because of their identity, I pray that they realize that there's a verse in the Quran that says, "With every hardship comes ease," and it's been said twice. There's one thing that all four of us can make. We can all make promises to one another. We can make promises to our parents, and they can make it to us. But we can easily break them. But something that is promised by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is not something that we should take lightly. So if any time, for any reason, if you are bestowed upon hardship, know that there will be ease. And though at that moment it may not seem like it may seem like, nope, this is it. I don't think it can get any worse, or I don't think I can endure it. I think I'm done. Just at that moment, just tell yourself, it's a promise by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not a promise that a human being made to me. It's a promise God made to me that with every hardship there'll be ease. So I think all of our Muslim brothers and sisters, this life wasn't meant to be easy anyways. So take it that this is just temporary and that there's something better for us, and we need to do our best, live this worldly life, enjoy it, but to a degree that it does not contradict or it does not distance our Lord. And I think everything that you guys have said has taught me so much, and thank you, Faizan, for this opportunity. This is honestly what you guys do. The MPL group is I've been a fan of you guys, and I think I've said this to you guys before as well. Bringing people together, speaking about I think so many social issues and religious issues, I feel like is much needed in our society. So thank you for this platform.
Of course. That's such a beautiful way to end it off with a compliment to me. So thank you very much. I love Munib's reaction. I did that just to, rub it in. Yeah, really. I just want to shout out everyone who's here. Alaa has a really amazing blog, and she posts very regularly talking about her life as a doctor and some of the struggles, personal, professional, family. So if that's something that interests you, any future potential doctors, do check out her blog. Fatima has an amazing, consistent interview thing going on Instagram where she does, I think, two every week, Saturday and Sundays. So if you like MPL, you're definitely gonna like, you know, the interviews Fatima does. And Munib, I don't want to say anything, but he does also have a personal blog, and you might recognize it from TikTok. He does, you know, funny, sometimes informational kind of videos, but it's mostly just funny. Kind of puts a smile on your face.
Mostly funny.
And yeah, so all three of these beautiful individuals have, you know, their own way of giving back through the social media world. So please do check out their platforms and follow them if that's something that benefits you. And yeah, I guess with that, we'll call it. And again, Jazakallah khair to each and every single one of you for being on here. I personally learned a lot from just the three of you. And I have no doubt that anyone who's listening to this is going to learn a lot. And so thank you very much for being part of this.
Thanks so much for having us, man.
Thank
That
you
was
for having
amazing.
us.
Of course.
Thank you.
All right. I guess, assalamu alaikum, and we'll see you in the next one.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Take care, guys. Nice meeting y'all.
Bye.